Welcome back to more Sip2Tally. I'm your host, Coach Evans, and today we're going to take a look at our number 20 team on the more Sip2Tally power rankings, and it is the Cincinnati Bengals. Now let's start in the quarterback room, who they have one of the highest rated quarterback rooms, coming in at number 4. And let's start with Joe Burrow, aka Joe Shiesty, Joe Franchise, all of those nicknames coming in, and this will be his 5th year out of LSU. Let's take a look at Joe's stats from last year. Now Joe was hurt for a while. Joe played in 10 games last year. He was 244 for 365, 2,309 yards, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Had a completion percentage of 66.8. He's always pretty high on that, but he's not the only reason for this number 4 ranking, because when he got hurt and Jake Browning came in and did a pretty good job. Jake Browning came in and completed 70% of his passes for 1,936 yards, 12 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. So something about the system and the skill players on that team that allowed Jake Browning to come in and have some similar success than what Joe Burrow had. And then the third guy in that room is Logan Woodside. Played in one game for the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken, last year. Really, not the Raiders, the Falcons. Didn't have very many stats. So in that quarterback room, you have Joe Burrow, you have Jake Browning, and Logan Woodside. And Jake Browning came in and did a heck of a job when Joe Burrow went down last year. Even though they didn't finish it off, but Jake Browning did a good job completing that room. And I have this room ranked as the number 4 quarterback room in the NFL. Let's go to their running back room, which they lost Joe Mixon. And this will be the first time them not having Joe Mixon in forever. If I'm not mistaken, Joe spent most of his career here in Cincinnati. Their running back room I have ranked 30th. Let's talk about some of the guys in that running back room. Now, this guy, he shared carries with Jonathan Taylor. It is Zach Moss. Last year, Zach Moss played in 17 games, had 794 rushing yards while splitting time with JT. I'm sorry, not 17 games, played in 14 games while splitting time with JT. Had 5 touchdowns. He also had 37 targets, 27 catches for 192 yards, so he can catch the ball at the backfield as well. But again, in Indianapolis, they was behind this massive O-line, so I'm wondering how well that's going to play out here in Cincinnati, because the O-line is not as good as it is in Indianapolis. But also in that running back room, you have Chase Brown. Chase Brown didn't have very many stats, was a backup already. Coming in last year, he had only 179 yards on 44 carries. Also in that room, you had Travion Williams, another non-reliable backup that had minimal production last year. He had 15 carries on 69 yards. So you can see why I had this room ranked as number 30. There's not a lot of production in this room other than the top dog, and he shared carries last year. So going to their wide receiver room. Now, everybody knows their wide receivers. And for the most part, you can pencil these guys in to be a top group of wide receivers. I didn't this time, because I tried to factor in past production with future production. And because of past production last year, I got them right outside the top 10. And I look at the whole room. You got to think about the whole room. When I give you the rest of the guys in the room, you'll see why I got them where I have them at. I have them at number 11. Now, we all know who the top dog is in this room, and it's Ja'Marr Chase. Ja'Marr Chase, if I'm not mistaken, make sure my number's right, had 100 catches for just over 12. That's right, 100 catches for 1,216 yards, 7 touchdowns. And we know what Ja'Marr Chase gives you on the outside. He's almost one of the unguardable guys in the NFL. He can beat you deep. He can beat you short. He can break tackles. He's a running back once he gets the ball in his hands. He's one of the guys out there at wide receiver. T. Higgins, he's disgruntled, but he's going to play this year. He's kind of the guy that didn't have the production that you would expect out of him. Last year, he only had 42 catches for 656 yards. Only played in 12 games, though. Didn't play all 17 games, only played in 12 games. But even if you kind of add that to you, that still don't get you to about 600, maybe 700 yards out of him. And he's, over 1,000-yard receiver, you would think. The past 2 seasons before that, he had 1,000 yards. Then his rookie season, he had 908. So that production for T. Higgins fell off. And now we get to talking about some of the other guys in the room. Their slot receiver is probably going to be a rookie, Jermaine Burton from Alabama. They lost their slot receiver that they've had for a long time. That was part of their triplets. So Jermaine Burton's probably going to stop jumping there and take that role. But then you can look at Charlie, my guy Charlie, what's Charlie's last name? Charlie Jones from Purdue, who's probably going to come in and get some snaps. Didn't have much production last year. 7 catches, 64 yards. You also got Trent Irwin, who's in that room. Didn't have much production last year. 25 catches, 316 yards. And he probably had the most production out of any of the backups. And then Andrea Igoslavich. I hope I said that right. I probably did not. He had 15 catches for 16 yards and 4 TDs last year. So, outside of those two top guys, you got a bunch of average to below average guys, and they got a chance to prove themselves. And we don't know what Burton is yet, but Burton could come in and take that slot spot. But I really like Charlie Jones to start off in that position before Burton gets that shot. Going to the tight end room. You got a guy that I really like. Well, I really like his celebration. He tries to do a version of the gritty, but I call it the skedaddle because his gritty looks nothing like what it's supposed to look like. And that's Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki bounced around the past couple of years. Last year, he spent in New England. He had 29 catches for 244 yards with 2 touchdowns. Also in this room is Drew Sample. Drew Samples was with the Bengals last year. The numbers he put up, 22 catches, 163 yards, 2 TDs. But the third string tight end is the guy that had the most production last year. His name is Tanner Hudson. Tanner Hudson had 39 catches for 352 yards and a touchdown. So they got 3 guys in this room that I think will be very productive. And so they can contribute to the passing game in a bunch of different ways. And the second gives you an athletic guy that can go up and get the high balls in the red zone as well. As far as their O-line, they got Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle, Cordell Volson at left guard, Ted Caracas at center, Alex Kappa at right guard, Trent Brown at right tackle. The highest graded one is Trent Brown at right tackle, but they also drafted Amarius Mims from Georgia. I'm not really sure where he'd fit in this O-line, but just looking at their PFF grades, they'd probably slide Mims in at left guard for Volson because he has the lowest PFF grade, just from the outside looking in. Because Trent Brown that is, and he played with New England last year, would be the spot Mims would normally play. But if they're going to slide him in and let him play guard to try to get his feet wet, they probably put him at left guard next to Orlando Brown Jr. And then if they put him next to Orlando Brown Jr., that's 2 massive guys on that left side of the line for Cincinnati. Let's slide on over to the dark side of the ball for the Bengals. Playing a little 4-3 this year. So on their defensive line, starting with their edge guys, you got Sam Hubbard and you got Trey Henderson. Let's look at Sam Hubbard first. Last year, Hubbard had played in 15 games, 58 tackles, 7 tackles for losses, 6 sacks, 7 QB hits. Now, that's solid for one side, but then you look on the other side, and this dude just went nuts last year, and that's Trey Henderson. Came out of nowhere, got to Cincinnati, and just got real comfortable in the system. Like, had a whole different career once he got to Cincinnati. Once he got out of New Orleans, his career changed. Last year, 17 and a half sacks. He had 43 tackles. What's that? 16 tackles for loss, 11 QB hits, 17 and a half sacks, and he was a Pro Bowler in 2023. So Trey Henderson and Sam Hubbard, really formidable foes on that edge. Let's talk about what they got on the interior line for the Cincinnati Bengals. They brought in Sheldon Rankins from the Jets to try to solidify the loss of DJ Reader. DJ Reader was one of the guys I thought was a dude. And when DJ Reader played for the Bengals, their defense was a lot different. Sheldon Rankins he was a long-time Jet, played for Houston last year. And for Houston last year, he had 6 sacks, 37 tackles, and just a guy that eat up blocks. Also in the middle, they had B.J. Hill, who's a holdover from last year. He had 4.5 sacks with 51 tackles, 2 tackles for losses. And he was another guy that just kind of, what Sheldon Rankins and what B.J. Hill are going to try to do is the same thing Reader and B.J. Hill did. Hold up guys so their linebackers can run free. And when I get to the linebackers, one of the things we're going to talk about with them is their speed. So for their defensive line, I have ranked 25. And let me recap for a second, right? Because I guess I forgot to mention. Their offensive line, I have 11. The tight end group, I have 25. I forgot to mention those as I was going through. So tight end, 25. Offensive line, 11. Defensive line, 25. I know I mentioned those other ones, but just caught myself. I got to bag it up. So now let's go into linebacker play. Their linebackers, starting with Logan Wilson. Logan Wilson's one of the outside linebackers last year. One of the guys that I'm gonna say got the drop hip tackle outlaw, I think. But last year he had 135 tackles, 9 passes defended, 2 forced fumbles, 4 interceptions. Just an overall run around, knock your head off effort guy. Also out there with Logan Wilson, you got Jermaine Pratt, who's another same version of Logan Wilson. No nonsense, run around, play hard nosed, assignment driven guy. He had 118 tackles. He had 2 interceptions, 3 passes defended, and also the guy in the middle that kind of makes the thing go. Well, Jermaine Pratt is the guy in the middle. The other outside linebacker, who's another speed guy, and this is the one that he don't play as much as the other two, but Akeem Gaither-Davis, and he's the fastest one out of the three coming out of Appalachian State. I remember him in the draft. He played in 13 games, only had 17 tackles, but he's going to have a bigger role this year. 1 TFL, 1 pass defended. So those 3 guys right there, if you get to second level on them, you're probably not going to outrun them. You're going to have to go through them or use some kind of moves because all 3 of those guys can run. All 3 of them play hard, and I have their linebacker room ranked 24. Move back to secondary. Starting with Cam Taylor-Britt. Last year, Cam Taylor-Britt played in 12 games. He had 50 tackles, 11 passes defended, 4 interceptions. He's one of the young ascending corners in the NFL. Can't take that from the player. Played a lot of man, good at man and zone. Always getting his head around, playing the ball, high pointing the ball. And even if he can't get the interception, does a good job of playing the ball without getting penalties, getting his running mate back there is the speedy DJ Turner. And I don't know, y'all, combine a couple years ago, DJ Turner was one of the fastest ones at the combine. Coming off his rookie year last year, played in 12 games, had a sack, had a forced fumble, didn't have any interceptions, had 50 tackles, but he was always in position. He made some rookie mistakes, but he was in position, learned a lot from Cam Taylor-Britt, and those 2 guys together gonna learn to grow and probably be one of the better cornerback tandems in the future. Their nickel is Mike Hilton. Now, Mike Hilton has the most experience and probably got the best stats out of all of them. He played in all 17 games, had 84 tackles, 2 sacks, forced fumble, two INTs. Just an overall hard-nosed player. And the 2 young corners can learn from Mike Hilton, and they can grow from that aspect right there. Let's go to that safety room. And if I didn't say the cornerback room, I have it as number 22. Going to that safety room I have at number 11. They brought back Von Bell, who was a Bengal. Then he was a Panther. Now he's back to being a Bengal. Last year in Carolina, he had 69 tackles, 1 interception. And Von Bell is the guy he's the enforcer. Von Bell is, if they go one high, he'll be the guy that comes out in the box. They have a bunch of other different looks. Von Bell will be the guy that he going to patrol the middle of the field and make sure stuff don't get sweet over the middle of the field. That's what he is. And they also brought in Geno Stone. Geno Stone was second in the NFL to Deron Bland in interceptions. He had a career year for Baltimore last year. Played in 12 games, started about 7 or 8 for Marcus Williams. 68 tackles, like I said, 7 interceptions, 9 passes defended. Had a career year for him. And so I got their safety room ranked 11 on the strength that what Geno Stone did last year, and they brought back Von Bell. But they also got Young Hill in that room too, and I like what he can bring to the table too. So let's take a look at all the rankings and add them together, divide them, and see what number we get. So in the quarterback room, they're number 4. Running back room, they're 30. Wide receivers, 11. Tight end, 25. O-line, 11. Defensive line edge, 25. Linebackers, 24. Cornerbacks, 22. Safeties, 11. Add them all up, divide them, that comes out to be 18.11111. And that makes them the number 20 team on the more Sip2Tally Power Rankings. Let's take a look at their draft picks and see who they drafted and how they fit into the scheme for the Cincinnati Bengals. They drafted Amarius Mims, who may get into one of those guard positions. It's yet to be seen. He can play both, I think. Chris Jenkins, who's probably going to rotate at one of those defensive tackle positions. Jermaine Burton could fight for that third receiver spot. McKinley Jackson could also be in that interior defensive line rotation. Eric All probably won't see much time other than special teams. Josh Newton, same probably will be with him, special teams. Tanner McLaughlin, probably special teams guy, because those tight ends, I really like that tight end room. Cedric Johnson, they got 2 really good defensive ends. He can be a guy to come in and spare one of them when they get tired. But other than that, no. Safety, DJ Anthony, from Ole Miss, no. And then center Matt Lee from Miami probably won't get in unless they have a injury to their center up front. Those are the guys they drafted. Do you think the Cincinnati Bengals are too high, too low, or spot on? I know you got something to say about that wide receiver room, but you got to think about it. T only had 42 catches last year, and they don't have a proven third guy, and their tight end room is kind of average too. So let me know what you think about it so far. I appreciate you guys coming out. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here with me. Who's next? And is Cincinnati too high or too low? And I'll see y'all Monday. Peace.